All right, so I am here on behalf of I guess it's the same pollinators of South Como. We have been working with the Pollinator Pathways grant for the last year now. Actually, in October, it'll be a year. And so I wanted to give a little bit of an update on how things are going with that grant, what has been happening, and the work that's been going on in South Como, but also with the partner organizations we're working with. So just a quick overview. Last year, we applied with the Beeline, Frogtown Green, Minseed, and the Xerxes Society. So 5 organizations applied together to get some grant funding. Ready for this? Some grant funding, $200,000 of grant funding, and we got it. And so we've been working with that over the last year. I put a little bit of a breakdown of how the funding was kind of doled out between the organizations, and then also how the funding was like what it's being spent on. So as you can see, D10 kind of was the bulk of that. So what was cool about this collaboration is that the Beeline and Frogtown Green have a lot of spaces that they want to maintain and expand. And we have a lot of places that we wanted to plant. And so it was able to provide a really good variety of things for the Pollinator Pathways funders to like really look at. So we weren't just doing maintenance or just doing planting. And so it's been really good because we've been able to work with some organizations who have been doing pollinator planting for years, and we've been able to expand our resources and our knowledge by looking at what they're doing. So as you can see here, D10 has quite a bit of that funding because ours are installations, and installations tend to be the most expensive part of pollinator planting. But we also have Minseed is doing all of the events for the grant. And then Xerxes is doing the pollinator monitoring and soil sampling, things like that throughout or across the communities. And then HMC and Frogtown Greens are both doing a lot of maintenance and then a lot of expanding because they have acres and acres of pollinator spaces in their communities. So you can see as far as like what it's being spent on, most of it's being spent on installations, but there's a big chunk for events and education, maintenance, monitoring and data collection, and then administration. And then there's a circle there that's for supplies. Those are just like gloves and all of those kind of things that need to get purchased for the new gardens that come in. So that's the total grant award. I've been working as the project manager for this. So for all of the organizations, we're reporting in through one grant. So it's been interesting and challenging to be able to do correct grant reporting through this, but we finally figured out a system and have been able to use that this time. So a lot of the administration is my time that's going into making sure that we are reporting everything correctly, collecting receipts, collecting all of those things. So some of the things that we have been doing, I gotta stop looking at that. I'm gonna look here. Some of the things that we've been doing in South Como. I'm gonna go through the South Como stuff first, and then I'll go through kind of the broader community. One of the bigger things is that we were able to do more boulevard garden installations. So last year we did, I believe 13 installations through the Lawns to Legumes grant, and we added 9 new installations this year. So if you look at the map, the green kind of plants on there are installations that we did through the Lawns to Legumes program. And then the Pollinator Pathways program, which is just a renamed Lawns to Legumes program from this time, are the blue kind of dots that are on there. So what's cool about this grant this year is last year we really, I don't know, can you see my mouse? Yeah, we really focused on kind of this smaller area right here in South Como. And this year we were able to leave it a little bit broader. So we were able to include some of those spaces that we weren't able to do before next to the cemetery and over kind of in that triangle by avocados. So we focused on them mostly for these new installations. This year we worked with an organization called Urban Roots. So they're over on the east side. They work with like youth kind of job training. So they had like groups, they were in our area forever. So you just stop and see like groups of like high schoolers, young college students that are doing pretty much summer like working programs, learning how to plant and cultivate native habitats. And so they do a lot of maintenance also. And so we worked with them this year to install, sorry, did I say 9? 10 Boulevard Gardens. I forgot we added one at the end. 10 Boulevard Gardens. The story of my life with these grants has been that they estimated the cost to be $20,000. We had $20,000. We were excited for $20,000, and it cost $8,768. So we are under budget there. So we have, as you'll see later, we're going to do quite a bit more next year so that we can make sure that we're spending down on the grant that we're doing. But part of the reason that the spending was so much less is because they actually grow a lot of their own plants at Urban Roots. So we didn't have to purchase, or at least didn't have to purchase at full price those gardens. So if you go down Como Avenue, I think we have like 3 right off of Como Avenue, you'll see the signs that they put up there. And then we'll have some Pollinator Pathways signs that go up there also soon. So the total Boulevard Gardens, and we did a couple D-lawns under the, oh, that's wrong because it's BWSR. Bowser, they always call it, and I giggle every time and nobody else does, funding our 23 native gardens. And those ones are also ones that are being cared for by site hosts. So these are on individual property. And so it's nice because then we have somebody automatically caring for it. We're not having to go around and water and weed all of these gardens.
I'm realizing now that I walk by that garden in the top photo every single day, and it's clicking for me now. Yeah. She has a beautiful garden across the long side of her house, and this extends up to the sidewalk. It's very cool.
Yes. Yeah. So most of the gardens that we did were new gardeners, but we did have, especially people that were on like corners that people walk by quite a bit. We did try to make sure that we had some more visible gardens. As last year we had a lot that were kind of tucked, or last year we had ones that were kind of tucked away in neighborhoods, which is great. Yeah. But it was really fun that we have a bunch now right off of Como, and are able to be visible for the places that people walk quite a bit. And so one of the things that we are hoping to develop with Urban Roots is kind of like a info packet, or like a little thing that somebody could take if they're interested in doing a pollinator garden, because a lot of our site hosts have they've had a lot of people ask about it, and they want to know like, hey, this is how you can do it on your own, or we're having more, gardens planted next year. Here's how you can be a part of that. Any questions on the Boulevard Garden installations?
What's required for maintenance, especially down the road?
Yeah. So right now, and that's kind of part of what Xerxes is also doing, is kind of doing the testing on like, are we going to need to do anything to mitigate like salt usage or like things like that on some of these busy spaces? But right now, for this first season, it's a lot of just water and weed. We are like reminding them every week, water and weed, water and weed, water and weed. And then for the second seasons, sometimes like we're doing mulching, like doing more mulching, things like that. But honestly, most of these gardens, if they can keep up with watering and weeding, they've been thriving. In the soil we have, which is wild for South Como because our soil is not great. I should have put some pictures of our gardens from last year up there because they look like 3 or 4 year gardens, especially after the first installations. We didn't remind them enough, we realized, but it was just really getting in the water because we have not had enough water. We cannot keep up with watering as much as we'd like to. And so most of our gardeners have said that as long as they get out there and water and weed, they have had success in the gardens.
It's usually my barrier too.
Yep. So we did this year, what was cool with some of the resources we had is if some of the gardens because life happens. So if some of the gardens got a little out of hand, we worked with a local contractor who's been doing gardens in the area, a neighbor here, and had them do a reset. And we said, like, we can come and we'll reset it. We'll pull out all the stuff that's not supposed to be in there. We'll get you kind of at a reset point. Or we had one house where the people who had the garden planted moved. And so it took us a while to get in touch with the new owners, and we're like, let's do a reset for you so that you are set up for success in this. Or our first group of gardens, the grass, like how we did sod removal was not great. And so it was like people were struggling with that. So trying to provide some resources for a reset was like really good because most of our gardeners are new gardeners. They're not people. We have a few now who have done it before, but for the most part, they're not people that have done native plant gardening before, or pollinator gardening.
I would love to jump into this program, but these sod removal scares me because the compost site doesn't take it.
Yes.
And I don't know what to do with it. So
And we do sod removal. So the first, so we have always worked with installers, like some, like Frogtown Green, and I believe Beeline, they do all their own stuff. They do community plantings, they do it all themselves. We did not have the capacity for that. So we've used installers for all of ours. So the installation includes sod removal, it includes mulch, it includes the plants, it includes sometimes like a compost or something like that. So the first year, we just did sod removal where they came in, took it out. This year with Urban Roots, they did do like the cardboard. So they put the cardboard over the top with the mulch, which kind of looks really good right away. About 3 weeks before installation, and then planted. And we've really, like, I pass these gardens every day and it has made such a huge difference. And so they didn't even remove the sod this time, and it killed everything off. Like, we made sure to look underneath it and see, and it's been going a lot better with that. So I think we'll probably do that again next year. All right, so 25 or 23 Boulevard Gardens with all of the funding. So the next thing that we were able to do was do a phase 2 at the Jameson Front Community Garden. So this is off of Front Avenue in Jameson, over by Calvary Cemetery, by the entrance over there. And we did a phase 1 last fall with Metro Blooms. We did a community planting. And then this summer, was it May? Oh, I didn't put the date on there. I believe it was in June. We did a phase 2 planting. And so, again, it was a community planting. So we all went out there, we plant usually about 150 plants, and it usually takes about 45 minutes. So it's really not too bad as long as you get a group of people there. And we've had a group that's been doing maintenance over there too. And so, like I said, we worked with Metro Blooms. We also got funding through Capital Region Watershed District for this one, just because we had capped the amount of money we could spend in one spot. So we needed to get some supplemental funding over there. And so I'd encourage you to walk by it. It looks great. Another one that's just doing really well in a space we didn't know if it would do well in. For those of you who have been following along, we did some biochar experimenting on this plot last year. And so I believe within the next few weeks, they should have kind of their paper write-up on like the results of that experiment, but we kind of took that out in order to put in the phase 2 one here. And for those of you that haven't been following along the whole time, this is a cleaned up Superfund site. So it is a capped off site that was very polluted. And so we did about a year's worth of work of soil testing and community engagement, and just making sure that like this was going to be a safe site to plant at. And then it's going to continue to be a testing site for, I think it's LTER, and I'm trying to remember what that stands for, but some U of M researchers who are doing research on urban pollutants and their effects on pollinator plants, and then pollinators also, which is something that hasn't really been studied before. So they have a couple sites throughout the Twin Cities, and this is one of them. So we added 700 square feet on that one with a total of 1,200 square feet with this funding, with the positive funding.
It looks like this was split with the CRWD grant too. So it was like a partnership between.
Well, it was just, we applied for the grant for both. So we could only spend, I believe, $5,000 on each site.
Sure.
And so our first planting was going to be over $5,000, like the first prep of it. And so we needed to have supplemental. So we applied for a Capital Region native planting to like
supplement,
be able to do the full first planting. And so it ended up being split in 2. So the phase 1, they supplemented some, and then this phase 2, they supplemented for it also.
Cool.
All right. And then the other kind of surprise planting that happened. So we have one garden over at Orchard Rec Center and at Pickup and Party this last year, which, if any of you remember, was just kind of a rainy, gloomy event. I ended up meeting one of our new neighbors who had just moved in, literally like pretty much across the street from my house. And he was like, "Hey, what's going on right there?" And as you can see on the left here, we had just like looks like a raised bed area. It used to have a tree in it, but it got cut down. And it was just a lot of volunteer tree type things that had started growing in there. And he's like, well, I'm a landscape architect. I would love to do something with that. Do you think there might be funding for something like that? And I was like, Jacob, is there funding? And literally over the next, I think, month, he himself, along with Robin, our intern this summer, cleared out that space, as you can see, piled it on top of his car, which I saw going back and forth by my house. All of those trees went on top of his car and planted this beautiful garden. And so now we have a second garden and he does a lot of, as you can see, like stonework and things like that. So he kind of volunteered that because that's not covered under the grant. And I think in one of the next ones, I have a picture of the full garden, but he was able to get that done and was so excited about being able to work right in his neighborhood. He does mostly residential sites. And so he's like, it's been fun to do a community site. And his goal was mostly knowing that there's tons of families and kids that are in that area. So he has really put a lot of like textured flowers and things like that, that kids can get into and not really wreck all that much. So a lot of milkweed and yarrow and things that kids can really touch and feel. And then of course there's a path right through there. He left a bunch of the wild strawberries that were in there already. And so it is really like a youth garden there. And so we did have a kids garden tour a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago, and had like 22 neighbors that showed up, and we did little scavenger hunts and had some after school snacks, even though we didn't have school that day. We didn't think through that. We're able to do kind of a feeling and touching garden tour with the kids. So that was kind of one of those, we didn't have that on our radar, but this funding allowed that to happen pretty quickly and added another 500 square feet into the Orchard Rec native gardens.
He's got an old Ford Escort wagon.
Yeah, it worked. It works. All right.
That looks really nice. I've been meaning to go over there and check out the finished work.
I was gonna say, this picture, I feel like does not do it justice. I think it was right after it was planted. It like, again, I'm just surprised at like the soil quality here is not great. And yet these plants just keep doing amazing. So it looks even better now, but I'd encourage you to go check it out. Just a quick update. Our other Orchard Rec garden had like, we still don't know what happened, but had some like dying off this year. So it was kind of fun because the rec garden, the one we planted, was kind of looking bad for a while. So it was nice to be like, just go look at that garden. And now our garden's the first garden is having a second life. So it looks great now, but it was nice to have something pretty to look at. And he did plant some trees in there too. So we're excited that those will grow up, some pollinating trees in there. All right. So just to kind of round off some of the other kind of events and things that happened, we hosted a winter sewing workshop. We did some seed sorting at Pickup and Party. There was a site host resource fair at the Minnesota Tool Library. So we, all of the new gardeners got together and we kind of talked them through what resources they had, what gardening was going to be looking like. And then also offered them, some free passes to the Minnesota Tool Library, just in case they don't have the supplies that maybe you would normally have if you were a more experienced gardener. We did the Lawns to Legumes garden tour. We had 2 sites at Jameson Front and at the Orchard Rec Center. And then we hosted monthly garden work days, which are still the second Sunday, right away in the morning because it's been hot the entire summer or rainy later in the day. And then we had the kids garden tour of the Orchard Rec Garden. And then the overarching events that were happening. So like I said, we're working with a lot of other organizations. If I were to say what everybody was doing, we would be here all night. But some of the things that we are all partnering on are some of these education events. And so Minseed has participated in or planned over 30 events in 2025. That's 6 more than our grant projected, and we're still pretty under budget. And so they kind of keep going. One of the things that they always want us to talk about, and I wanted to make sure to talk to you all about, is they do have what are called plant power-ups, which are just kind of small group sessions that they've done with places of worship. They've done with smaller like clubs at schools or something like that, where they'll do seed sorting or they'll do seed planting or winter sewing workshops. So if you have like a smaller group of like 6 to 10 people that you want to just do an activity with, we have those as part of our grant funding. So feel free to reach out to me or to Dawn Lamb, and she can get you connected. But those are some of the things that they've been doing. They've shared with over 2,700 participants through these events, probably way more than that, but those are the ones we've been able to count. And you can see there what events they've been doing. I believe this funding played a huge role in being able to expand the Mighty Midway Festival to have a lot more pollinator education aspects to it, and then the Climate Carnival too over in Frogtown, to be able to expand those programs. All right, and then we also had Robin this summer, which I think he was around for, you all have met him. He was amazing. I always say that either our gardens would have died or I would not have made it through the summer if he was not here. So you probably saw him out doing garden maintenance. Like he was literally outside like 4 hours a day, every day, doing garden maintenance and weeding and signage and keeping up with social media stuff and doing community events. He did all the soil sampling and plant sampling when our orchard garden just started wilting and we didn't know why. He was making sure I had the right tools for everybody. And then also like literally weekly went around to all of our gardens to make sure that everything was doing well. And so he was biking around all the time doing that. So that was a huge piece of why we're still able to do what we're doing. And I didn't just like run away screaming. And that was absolutely amazing. I am hoping, he hinted at coming back next year. I'm hoping that that will happen. He also was really great at, just like seeking out education, went to a lot of the educational events that other people were having to learn more about different types of pollinator gardening, about the trees and forests and all of this stuff, and was really interested in everything that was going on there. So also worked with, I think the bottom corner one was he and Jacob working to pull out all of those trees, which was, as you can see, sunset, which is not when he should have still been working.
It's great to hear though that you kind of like leaned into it.
Yes.
Wanted to learn about it.
Yes.
Yeah. That's very cool.
And I think by the end, he might have surpassed me in my knowledge of pollinator things. All right. So then really quick, what's next? Still this year, we are working with Rainbow Child Development Center over at the Como Frontdale intersection to see if we can get a garden over there. And then also with Brad up at Capitol Lean by the Tool Library to maybe do a fall planting this year. I'm actually going over there tomorrow to see if we can get it done. And then 2026, we have an aspirational 20 to 25 gardens, boulevard gardens being planted. We're hoping to do 5 more larger demonstration gardens, so kind of like the community gardens. Again, our plan is for 26 events for Really Xerxes to start filling out their pollinator monitoring, which would just be like testing for heavy metals, testing pollinators that are at our gardens to see like what it is that, I don't understand how this works. So I don't know. I'm not going to finish that sentence. Testing something because I'm like, are they going to kill bees? We'll ask Julia about that at some point. I'll report back. But being able to test to see like, what are these plants pulling out of the soil? How are salt levels affecting the plants, especially the ones right off of Como? Is that different than our plantings that are off of side streets or things like that? And so we'll be finding out more. And I think we'll have Julia come and talk to this group once she has done wider testing throughout the community. And then one thing we are doing too is really just thinking of long-term advocacy for pollinator plantings and being able to figure out, we've been working a lot with municipal entities to be like, this is why it's great to have a pollinator, garden rather than mowing it, or this is how you can care for it, or pesticide usage. Like there's been a broader just talk of how we can use maybe some public spaces and what are the benefits of using it for this instead of a lawn or taking care of a lawn. So we'll be working with the groups that we have been in this grant with to kind of think long-term, think a little bit more long-term on how we can advocate for these spaces. I always love this slide because it keeps growing. So these are all of the organizations that we've collaborated with over the last now 3 years to make these gardens happen. And it couldn't have happened without these people. So just kind of, there's been a couple more people that have been added this year. Urban Roots was a new collaboration for us. The ecology landscape design was Jacob's or is Jacob's group. Of course, Frogtown Green and the Beeline, we haven't partnered with them yet before. And so that's a huge one. And then, I mean, all of these people. So I had to make some things smaller so that we can add more, but it's been a really cool way for us to connect with organizations. And this isn't even like now the businesses that we're working with to try to get pollinator plantings in their spaces, or the schools we're working with and things like that. And it definitely doesn't include like the broader connection that's happening through Minseed and their plant power-ups and all of those. I know they're in a lot more spaces too. And so this has just been a huge way for us to really build our network within Como, outside of Como. The resources that our gardeners have now are huge compared to even what we were doing a couple years ago. So I always like to put that up just to say this is farther reaching than, you know, planting gardens. It is also building these connections. And then I always want to thank like the volunteers. So we've had a group of about 6 leaders that have really been doing most of the same pollinator work that's been happening. And then a group of probably about 10 more folks that have been working on maintenance and weeding and watering and keeping things going. So that's been huge. If anybody's interested in getting involved, and now we could use people to help, you know, keep up the gardens. We're going to be wrapping them up pretty soon. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to be able to do that. And that does